that was the X factor. Like I had been strength training through a part range of motion for so long that I never explored the end ranges, direction. I didn't have a lot of direction of where I wanted to go after wrestling. I was winning by a point, and I needed to take him down to win, and he shot in on.
All right, welcome everybody to the Couro pod number 11. Now, this time, as we teased earlier, we have the mighty, the great Nick Troquato, the grappling expert, BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert, stoicist. We're gonna learn a lot from this man right now. So Nick, thank you for coming on the pod. We really appreciate you. Also, for those listening or watching, unfortunately, Zach could not be here today. He couldn't make it, with the times and all that stuff. It's hard to have three top tier athletes align their schedules all together as it is, but we'll make it work. So, Zach, we'll catch you on the next one. But he sent in some questions, so I'll be asking some Zach related questions. But anyways, welcome, Nick. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Say hi.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Cam. What's up, everybody? My name is Nick Troquato, and I am a strength coach. My background is in wrestling, and to dive right in. I've been wrestling since I was in seventh grade, so I'm 27 now, about to be 28. In a month, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, so I started wrestling in seventh grade, and I really was not good when I started at all. I remember doing like duck walks, which is like the introductory movement for wrestling, and I was just so bad at it, just starting out. And I remember starting out too, which is for wrestling, it's late. Like a lot of kids start when they're like kindergarten or first grade, second grade. Like
Really?
some kids, yeah, the really committed ones start early.
Wow.
So I was starting late.
Did you
And
do sports before wrestling? Like, did you start with some other sports and kind of fall into wrestling, or how did you get into it?
so I mean, I was a swimmer before wrestling. So
Ah.
some people would say I didn't even play sports before, right? I'm just kidding. No hate to the swimmers. I'm totally joking. But yeah, I swam before. I played like t-ball as a kid and like soccer and like um, you know, like those sports. But I always had like a lot of energy. I remember like when I was playing soccer as a kid, like I would tackle kids because I didn't understand. Like I remember my coach having to tell me like, Nick, you can't do that, and I just like did not get. I'm like, I'm just pushing kids around. Like I thought this was part of the game, so I always kind of had that extra tenacity or extra energy necessary for grappling and the
Mm-hmm.
contact sports. It's
Got
made
it.
for the
Okay.
contact sports. And I also I played football too. So in
Mm.
fifth grade, fourth, fifth. No, I started in fifth grade, and I played sixth, seventh, and eighth. So yeah, football and swimming. Um, and then, but wrestling was the main sport, and I started that in seventh grade. And when I
Mm.
found wrestling, I was like, you know what, like this is what I want to focus on. Because football, I remember just being like, like there's it's less, it's not as fair. Like there's some kids who are just way bigger, and you have that size, disadvantage. And I was
Sure.
like, wrestling is more even playing field or the same weight. So yeah, so when I found wrestling, I was hooked. I was hooked with the challenge too, because I wasn't good when I started, like I said. And I remember like at the end of my seventh grade season, there's a couple of tournaments and they lead up to like the uh, state meet for junior high. And they call it
Mm.
TOCs. And the tournament that you need to place at to qualify for TOCs, I didn't even make it to that tournament, and I got pinned by a teammate who like was not good at all, and I was beating the guy, and then he reversed me and he pinned me with like 10 seconds left, and I just remember being devastated. I was like, this is terrible. Like it really struck me as like even a seventh grade kid. I was like, this sucks. And it just motivated me to train the whole off season. And,
Right on.
and I was in 7th grade, so I didn't know what I was doing, but, I was just doing my best. And that's like where I first asked my mom if I could get some weights and put them in my garage. And I'm trying to lift the weights, to the best of my 7th grade knowledge. And
was that on your own? You were just kind of lifting on your own? You didn't have a coach at all?
Yeah, no. I was just trying to get after it, in the
Nice.
garage, got I don't even remember where I got the workouts from, but yeah, I was just doing my best. And actually, I remember hurting my back, trying to just lift weight, trying to just do back extensions or something. And just trial by error. But yeah, anyways, fast forward 7th grade is when I started, and 8th grade I got a lot better, and I actually made it to that tournament, the TOC tournament, qualified for it. Yeah. And but I didn't place in it. And I remember there was several other kids in the area who placed it in, and they were studs. And in middle school wrestling, the kids who are good at wrestling are they're superstars. They're in the eyes of a 7th grader. I remember seeing myself differently from those wrestlers, and just being wow, they've been wrestling for so long, and they're so good, and here I am just starting out. But so we'll talk about how my mentality has changed over the years. But
sure,
it's interesting to think, kind of how I viewed myself compared with other kids my age who were doing the same sport. But yeah, so 8th grade, I continued to wrestle, made it to that TOC tournament, and then I went to Ponderosa High School my freshman year. And Ponderosa is really well known for wrestling. We have a storied history, years of state placers, state champions, really good program. And I wrestled for Tyson Escobar and then Soren Murphy, who both wrestled in college. So they're really good coaches. And when I came in as a freshman, they've told me, they're yeah, we didn't think you were going to be very good. We thought your buddy Aubrey was going to be better than you. My buddy Aubrey, it's a running joke because he hated wrestling. He ended up wrestling 3 years, but senior year he was nah. But yeah, they thought he was going to be better than me, and I was off the radar coming in as a freshman. But I was super committed, and I just loved the fact that I could put in all the work, and it was all on me to get better. So I didn't have to rely on anyone, and it was really the path was clear. Just work harder, and you're going to get better. So, and that's what I did. And sophomore year, I was started on varsity, and then junior year I was a state qualifier, and then by the time I was a senior, I was a state placer. So I elevated all 4 years, and I had some really great coaches who helped me out with that process. And when I was a junior, I was the state qualifier. But the junior year to my senior year, I had this dad in the program. His kids were younger, but he saw that I was working hard, and he was a former Marine and a cop at the time. And he was I got my CSCS. He had a strength and conditioning cert, and he's if you want to come train with me, I'll train you 4 times a week, for free, no cost. Yeah, his name's Jeff Llewellyn, and yeah, he's a huge mentor for me. Still is a mentor for me. I stay in touch with him. But yeah, he kicked my ass in the garage. We did almost CrossFit style workouts, but not exactly. They were a blend of strength training and lifting heavy, but then we had brutal circuits that he would put me through after with sandbag carries, swings, sled pushes, all of the functional stuff. And I got huge. I went from being an average wrestler, decent, good, made it to state, to being one of the best in the state my senior year. And that elevation was a testament to how much work that I put in with him.
Right.
So
Yeah, I did some a little research. Sorry to cut you off there. I
no,
just
good.
I did a little bit of research and I saw that you were so you wrestled in the 182 pound uh division
Yeah,
section.
182s.
Yeah, and like I mean, you had a bunch of news clippings written about you. Like you
Yeah,
you you won first place at the 2013 Tim Brown Memorial and
yeah,
like yeah, right? Like
yeah.
so that was your senior year, I guess?
That was my senior year. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
right. And you were like all these people were saying, "Oh, like he's a wrestler to watch out for, all this stuff. Like he's an up and comer, like he's great at what he's doing. Not up and comer, but like you were like, you know, a wrestler of note." Right.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
that how is that? Like were you aware of those things? Because like you didn't start off that way. And so once you started getting those news clippings about you, how did that change your perspective?
But you know what? Like it was I definitely saw them and I thought they were great, but like they weren't, huge motivators for me. Like I mean definitely
Mm,
like I appreciated them, but it was interesting because my goal as a junior was to make it to state. And that's like I thought about that, I visualized about it every single day. And like, talking about from where I went or where I came from, I used to be like this guy that, you know, felt like he started late in wrestling and felt like I was kind of behind the pack and kind of, really struggled to develop the confidence to believe that, I could actually go out and do, what I set out for.
mm,
So when I broke through that barrier when I was a junior and I like made it to state, and then when when I made it to state, I was like, you know what? I remember seeing like the guys walking around the state tournament, like at the end, all of the state placers. Before they do the finals matches, they have like a parade of all the people who have placed in the state. It's like the top 8 guys, and I just remember seeing all of those guys and being like, wow, like those are the best of the best. Like I want to be one of those guys. And uh and my coaches were like, well, like set your sights on like being a champ, like
yeah.
go for number one, right? Instead of top 8. But I guess just where I was coming from, like to me, like being a state placer was the goal. It was like that's what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to focus on.
Mm,
And it's like there's some interesting foreshadowing because the next year I ended up doing that, and leading up to that, and then what happens after is really interesting too. But yeah, so I set my goals on being a state placer, and I would visualize about it. I would like think about it every day, and I would go in. I like put in extra work, and I like took action steps, to make that happen. And I think that's the key part of
mm,
any goal setting is like you have an idea, you have an intention, you have something you're setting your eyes on, and then putting the action behind it is what actually brings it to fruition, right? So I was doing that my senior year, and I was putting in these action steps, um, but like so was my goal because we are talking about like how did the newspaper, like how did all the praise affect my mindset.
right.
Like in my mind I was like laser focused on just getting that goal, so like nothing else really mattered, as far as like praise or anything else. And like going into that season, like I was undefeated going into this really tough tournament called the Doc Buchanan, which is like the toughest tournament in California. And I wrestled the eventual state champ and like had a close match with him. Um, and that was my first loss. And
Mm,
he beat me by a couple points. And then after that, like I didn't lose until I went to state. So I had one loss on my record at that point, and like I had won all these tournaments, and yeah, I won the Tim Brown tournament, and that was a funny note on Tim Brown is like they always have it in the Sacramento Auditorium, which is like this really cool venue.
yeah.
Like they like have plays in there, like it just looks awesome. And when I won it, they had it in the auditorium, like this different venue. So I was like, oh, the one year I win this thing, like they have it in this other like venue. I'm like, dang it, but it was still cool to win.
Sure.
So yeah, so going into state that year, I had one loss, and I was ranked like top 5. And yeah, I won my first couple matches, and then going into the quarterfinal match. So the way the state tournament is set up, if you win your quarterfinal match, you're an automatic state placer. So like
Oh.
that was the match. Like you get to that point, and all of a sudden my goal's on the line, and I was going up against this state runner up from the year before, and he's this guy from Bakersfield. And this is a great story because my coach Murphy didn't tell me at the time, but Murphy wrestled at Cal State Bakersfield, and his coach was the guy that I was about to wrestle. Was that guy's dad? So
Oh.
Murphy's coach at Bakersfield was this guy's dad that I was about to wrestle, and his dad was coaching him. So and Murphy like butted heads big time with this guy in college. So like
Okay.
he was like in his mind, he's like, Nick, like you better win this, like
Yeah.
you better win this, but he didn't tell me because he didn't want to put the extra pressure on me. Um, and I ended up beating the guy 7-6, like
Woo.
super close match, yeah. And like the guy was what ended up happening. His name was Kyle Pope. He's a really good wrestler, and he
Mm.
went on to wrestle at Wyoming, I believe. But he was a much better technical wrestler than I was. But I was just in way better shape, and I was stronger. And I could last longer, and that's what ended up happening. I just got him tired, and then at the very end, it was like, what was it? It was he was winning by a point, and I needed to take him down to win. And he shot in on my leg, and he like grabbed my leg, and I like jumped over the top and like draped over him. And there's this move where you like in his position, you try to turn and spin around to get the two. And right when he went to turn around, like I flipped my hips and landed on top of him, and then like spun
Mm.
around and like got the two. And like there's a video of it, and like the whole place is like whoa, and like everyone starts going crazy in the stands. And I just remember like landing on top. They give me the two, so now I'm winning. And then like I'm walking. I just remember walking back, and I get chills when I think about it because for whatever reason, like I just look up and like I just look right up to the sky, and I don't know why I did that. Even talking about it gives me chills because
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of like I believe in something greater than us, like a higher power. I think we're just all calling it different names, but like
Mm.
I look up and was like that connection, and then I went on to win the match, and I reached my goal, and that was like to me that was it. Like all of this work that I put in for, like now it paid off. But what was interesting to know about like all of that is that now in that moment in time I had reached my goal, so everything after that was kind of gravy to me.
Ah.
So I went into the semifinals match, and I was like, I've already reached my goal. Like I've already won it. I wasn't like, oh, like I want to be a state champ. Like I'm hungry. So my mindset was different. And when I got on the state finals or state semifinals match, um, I super close match. It ended up going to overtime, and I lost in overtime. But it was like in retrospect, I wonder. I'm like, if I would have set my goal on being a finalist, like that probably would have affected my actions. It would have affected how I approached the match. It would have affected like how I went
Yeah.
and wrestled. And it just I don't have any regrets. Like I really don't. Like I'm happy with what happened, and I'm proud of how I did in high school. But it is interesting to think about, especially for people listening, because it just goes to show, like, whatever you set your goals on, whatever you set your sights on, as soon as you reach that goal, like set another one, or
Right.
even better, set your goals even higher, even if you don't believe in them at first, even if they seem outlandish, because that's how I felt at the time. I'm like, I felt kind of ridiculous trying to say, I want to be a state champ when the previous year I was just a state qualifier, but I was right there the next year, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, so there's so that was interesting. But yeah, so I ended up taking fourth, and I ended up losing to my eventual teammate at Cal Poly, Sorab. Shout out Sorab.
Shout out.
Yeah, so we ended up studying kinesiology together at Cal Poly,
Right
which is
on.
kind of a small world. Yeah, but then yeah, so after that, then I went in and I got a scholarship to Cal Poly, and that was like my dream school. Like that was my number one choice before going to wrestle in college. So when they called me up, I was sold. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah, and then when I got out there, it wasn't what I expected. I think there were a couple of things that really impacted kind of where I was at. But like in high school, I had always I had like a love hate relationship with wrestling, where like I loved it, but at the same time, at the end of the wrestling season, I needed some time away from it to kind of recharge or refuel. And when I got to Cal Poly, it was like 100 miles an hour. Um, like there was no time away from it, and I think that affected me. Um, myself and the coach, we didn't get along
Mm.
at the time, and it's never a one-way street, right? It's always two ways. So I don't want to say anything bad about the guy, because I know it wasn't just him, but I
Mm-hmm.
decided to step away from wrestling after my freshman year, and that after that it was a tough time. It was a really tough time for me. um I like not having that outlet, being a student athlete, for all those years in high school before, and just living that lifestyle. Like, I mean, you know how it is with,
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's
I
tough.
was I was lost, dude. I was really lost. I like didn't know, you know, really what to do with my time, and like that's where I started getting into jujitsu. And I was traveling down to the pit in Slow when I was in San Luis Obispo, and I was going and training with those guys, and I made some good friends out there, some really good people, but it was far, so I was traveling like 20 minutes to go train with them, and then going back, to be at college, to be in college. But that's where I first started getting into jujitsu, and I really enjoyed it. And um, then so yeah, so jujitsu was like right after wrestling, and then
So how
every
did
time I
you?
would come back,
Sorry, I was just gonna ask.
yeah,
Like, how did you? Was it like a natural transition for you to you know to think about going into jujitsu, or was there a friend that said, "Hey, try this out"? Like, how did you?
yeah,
What was the jump from wrestling to jujitsu for you?
yeah. So my buddy Elliot Kelly introduced me to jujitsu,
Mm.
and I met Elliot when I was a lifeguard at the El Dorado Hills Sports Club, and I
All
was
right.
I was a lifeguard. He was there with his family, and he'd just be hanging out, and he owned a jujitsu gym right down the street, and we just started talking. And he's like, "Oh, you wrestle? Like I wrestle too," because he wrestled at Davis
Oh
when
yeah.
UC Davis had a wrestling team. And yeah, he was like, come on out to the gym, like come try it out. I'm like, okay. And went out there, and then yeah, it was just a natural transition. Like I
Mm.
loved it. Like it's like, I mean, jujitsu is wrestling with chokes, and you can go from your back. So like when
Ah.
when two people are wrestling, like in wrestling, like you never want to go to your back, right? If you go to your back, you get pinned. In jiu-jitsu, if you get taken down, you can stay on your back, and then there's offensive moves that you can do from your back.
Is that
So
guard?
yeah,
Is that?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, your guard. If you have your legs wrapped around them, that's your guard. If
Okay.
if they break your legs open and
Mm.
then try to pass, then it's like an open guard. So it's it's much more it's not as fast paced as wrestling. Wrestling's nonstop, people are always moving. But in jiu-jitsu, like you can set yourself up and kind of take a moment to relax and then play from it. And it's
Mm.
much more like flowing, and it's still intense, don't get me wrong, but like you can like it's different at the same time. So it's similar but different to wrestling. Well, wrestlers do really well in jiu-jitsu, because they know how to scramble and how to move in different positions. And then, you just have to learn a couple of the fundamentals, like not going for, there's certain wrestling moves that you don't want to do in jiu-jitsu because you'll leave your neck exposed.
Oh,
So yeah, so after you learn those, then it's just a matter of time before you get good at jiu-jitsu. But
got it.
yeah,
Yeah, keep
Elliot
going.
got me in. Yeah.
Cool. I don't want to do. I have a bunch of questions on jiu-jitsu in general, but if we can get to those in a minute. But I'm fascinated by this story. So okay, so keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So this is 2015. Yeah, and at this point in time, like I'm pretty lost as far as like, direction. I didn't have a lot of direction of where I wanted to go after wrestling. I was like, I was at Cal Poly and I was studying kinesiology, but I had gone to Cal Poly to wrestle. So I was, kind of a lost student there. And, I thought at that moment in time, I wanted to, open up a gym at some point down the road. So I was studying kinesiology, um, which I stuck with, but yeah, definitely a trying time for me. So I just continued on with my schooling out there, and ended up graduating in 2017 with a degree in kinesiology. And
Mm-hmm.
this is where the story, as far as like my athletic career and in my professional career being a coach, like it really, like there was a curveball that threw in there, because like
Mm-hmm.
towards 2017, like I still had this fire to compete and I still wanted to wrestle and train. And I had these extra classes that I needed to complete, and I was going to take those at Cuesta College.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to wrestle with the Cuesta team just for fun, like just get out there and like wrestle in some open tournaments. And I was out there training, and me and my buddy were wrestling, and my buddy tried to throw me at that point, and he was also a state placer, so he was a good wrestler, and we were both gonna try to compete at the 184-pound spot. So like there was some like competition in the room, and
Mm-hmm.
it was the first day that we were gonna go live, or we were like actually like trying to wrestle, trying to like like take each other's heads off, right?
Mm.
And he went to throw me, and I fought the takedown, but I landed funny, and immediately from resisting, like I twisted my spine, and it was like a lightning rod went through my spine, and I
Oh
landed on
man.
top. I landed on top. I got the takedown, but I was like, holy shit! Like, what just happened? Like, I'd never experienced anything else like that in my life. Still haven't,
Yeah.
and knock on wood, hope I never do again. Yeah, but I was like, whoa, what was that? And like all your adrenaline's going, and you can't feel anything when you're in the moment like that, right?
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, have you had experiences like that where you like get
Yes.
injured? And
Yes.
yeah.
I broke my pelvis in high school. Um,
Whoa.
I know. Yeah. Like there's a whole lot of jokes with high school kids. Like, well, how'd you do that? And I was like, not in any fun way, man. It's playing basketball. I like
Yeah.
at the time my muscles were stronger than my bones.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably, I was 14, so I was young, right? So like my bones are
Right.
still growing and like my muscles just happened to like be stronger, I guess, said the doctor. And I was trying out for varsity, like working out with them, and like kind of trying to show off a little bit. So
Yeah.
like it was like a full court drill, and you have like an eighth of the court, like a sideline, and like an eighth of the court to like get around your guy. And then if you
Uh-huh.
do, you go in and you score. And if not, like it's basically a defensive drill. It's like really hard on the defense because you have like all
Yeah.
this room. And so I
Yeah.
got around the guy, and then I go up and I'm trying to dunk and like show off. And like, yeah, like you want me on the team, man. And I
Yeah.
go up and I just feel like a super weird separation. Like I just feel like
Oh,
I literally felt like the ball and socket um disconnected. And then like I just threw it off the backboard. I was like, that was weird. And then came back down, not smart, on the same leg.
oh,
And it just felt like it jammed in and broke, and like it felt like it broke.
oh my God.
What actually happened is like that did happen, but when I jumped and it pulled, like the muscle pulled so hard that there was a avulsion fracture, which means that a piece of the bone was actually ripped off.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
I
God.
literally ripped off a piece of my own bone by jumping, which is crazy. And coach comes over and he's like, that was weird. can you walk? You know? And so here I am trying to walk on a broken hip, right? And so I like get up and my leg was just not under me. Like I literally collapsed under me because of the pain. It was
Yeah.
crazy pain. And I'd never broken a bone
Wow.
until then. And
Wow.
so like he he was very confused. He didn't know what happened. I didn't know what happened. He called my parents. My mom came, picked me up, and like I went to the hospital and the doctor told me what happened. And doctor also said I would never jump again, which
Uh,
is funny because I'm a jumper now.
what?
But one day I'll hit up that doctor and be like, hey man, like you telling me that actually gave me a lot of like fire to prove you wrong. So with me it worked. But with other
Wow.
people, you might really hurt them psychologically. Telling a 14-year-old that you'll never be able to do anything again is really tough, right?
Yeah. For
But
real. Holy
for whatever,
shit.
I was a knucklehead, so it worked out for
Yeah.
me. But so,
Oh
yeah,
my
man.
God.
But I've
Wow.
had weird injuries, or like that was
Yeah.
probably the weirdest one. Like other ones are minor in comparison. But yeah,
How
man.
long?
Go
How long
ahead.
did it take you to rehab from it?
You know what's crazy? He told me to do nothing. He told me to do no rehab. And so this happened, I think, in October. And come February, this was the last week of basketball. I was on the freshman team. I was like the
Yeah.
team manager, basically, like
Yeah.
doing the scoreboard and stuff, like messing it up
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
There were some games where we had more points than we should have. Not by design, but just accident. But
Yeah.
anyways, uh, yeah. So like, I went to the doctors the last week, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I really feel like I'm okay." I was sneaking shots and layups here and there during practice, and like my coaches would be like, "What are you doing?" But
Yeah.
I was like, "I feel fine." And like
Yeah.
no one was looking. I tried to touch the backboard, touch the rim, all this stuff, and I no pain, right?
Wow.
This is after like being on crutches and having a cane and all this weird stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so I went back and I'm like, Doc, I feel fine. And he was like, if you can touch the ceiling 10 times, then I'll clear you, which is doesn't seem scientific to me. But
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I did it, and he was like, oh man, have you been training? I was like, no, dude, you told me to do nothing, and he cleared me and I played and I scored like 15 points a game. I came back and like was absolutely gassed, just like horrendous on defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
all offense, all just trying to like, I had all this pent up, like, I hadn't been able to move for 5 months or whatever. But 4 months. But so yeah, it took me
Yeah.
4 months to come back. And that's probably because I was 14. If it happened now, it would probably take me longer. But like our bodies are
Yeah.
crazy. And like being able to like getting injury is not the end of the road, right? Like you can come back and become
Yeah.
stronger
Yeah.
for it. And like I think that set me back, but it also is the reason why I got into track, because my coach was like, dude, you are so out of shape. You need to go into track.
Yeah.
And I did. And that's why I like am where I am today. So
Look at that. Wow.
mhm.
Wow. That's incredible story, Cam. I mean, and it's crazy that you healed so quickly.
I think so too. I actually like still have a little bit of scar tissue in there. I probably at some point will
Yeah.
need to get it scraped out. But you know, I'm good. I'm good for
Yeah.
now.
Good for now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Yeah, dude. Thank you for sharing. Wow. A
Hmm.
hell of a story. Yeah. Injuries, like, yeah, we can heal from them. Uh, when I experienced that back injury, it was a complete shock to me. Like it completely rocked my world, because like I couldn't
Mm.
step and put weight on my left foot after that without like sharp nerve pain and like sciatica. And for any of you guys that have had sciatica, you guys know. But it really like I mean, the low back is like the center. It's the center of our body. It's the center of everything. So when your back is screwed up, it affects your entire life. Like you can't
Hmm.
bend over to pick up things, and I
Yeah.
was in this dark spot, like, and I remember actually Kevin seeing me, and like he was telling me, and he was like, Nick, you got to check out this trainer that I worked with at Cal Poly, and he like saved my track career. I was like, all right, like I'll hit him up, and I hit him up, and his name's Brian Quigley, and shout out Brian, and he like we had a complete recovery. He was one of the first people that like really introduced me to mobility and functional training, and like just the technical sides of functional training. And he showed me I was really tight in my mid back, I was really tight in my hips, and he helped me make a first initial recovery after my back. So my last year at Cal Poly, my last quarter, I kind of joke, it's like I was studying kinesiology all 4 years, but like my last quarter, I like learned how to move again because
Yeah.
he started me like on the floor doing rolling exercises, learning how to just twist my spine and learning how to like do the most basic functions that we all learn how to do as a child. Like the first
Mm.
thing a child learns how to do is roll over onto its back and then back and
Yeah.
forth, right? So Brian introduced me to that and several other exercises that are used in the functional movement screen. Have you ever
Mm.
taken that, Cam?
No. Oh, actually, yes.
FMS?
I
Yeah.
yeah, I took it in college as an athlete and like never did well. I was not
Yeah.
mobile.
Yeah. Yeah. Most athletes pour really or test really poorly. And
Yeah.
that's how I was. My hamstrings were tight, my mid back was tight.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he really just exposed me to all these weaknesses. But I listened to everything he said and like made a full recovery at that point. And then I moved back home, and that was
Mm.
2018. And in 2018, I was like, all right, like I have this degree in kinesiology. Like, what do I do with it now? And
Yeah.
because as when you have a degree in kines, like most people go on to physical therapy school if they
Mm.
want to continue on with the profession, or a lot of people like go and do something completely different. And I was in this in between because I was like, I don't really want to go back to school for 3 years and like spend all that money on doing that and like,
Yeah.
go down that route when I wasn't even really sure I wanted to work in that field. But I knew I was passionate about movement and coaching people. So I knew I wanted to stay in the field. So I was like, like what should I do? So I ended up applying for this physical therapy company called Kime Performance Physical Therapy, which is a great company. And they're actually at Uriah Faber's Ultimate Fitness, where I work today. So
Oh.
I still stay in touch with them. I started working for him for a year and a half between 2018 and 20 right before COVID, and it was really cool because one of their physical therapists worked at Uriah Faber's gym, Russ Dunning. Really phenomenal guy, phenomenal physical therapist. Like most physical therapists, like aren't very like I don't want to say I know this is true. Like most physical therapists aren't like super athletic. Like they're wearing like they're wearing polos and like khaki pants and like
Yeah.
they got a belt on and they don't look very athletic and they're like in a classic physical therapy setting, usually they're working with like an older population. So going into Kime, I was following Russ around and interning with him. And Russ is like he has a background in martial arts. He worked with Uriah throughout his career, so he trained Uriah Faber like all
Mm.
before all of his fights. And Russ is a stud with kettlebells. He could do a Turkish get up with like 120 pounds over his head, like like pretty freaky, like. And like you see the guy, and you're like, this guy is strong as hell, like, but
Yeah.
not like overly bulky or anything, like just a really like strong, like athletic dude. And he's a physical therapist, and I was like, whoa, like that's like that kind of I could see myself being like that kind of physical therapist,
Mm.
and I was like, this is intriguing, like like learning from him was a great experience, and learning about um, how to help people right out of the injury rehabilitation process. Like I got to help him train several fighters as they rehab from injuries, and I got to see him work with people. And I basically followed him around for a year and a half and just learned from him. The whole time I was still deciding, like, do I want to go to physical therapy school? Do I not?
Yeah.
And I started taking some classes to go to physical therapy school because you have to have stellar grades. You have to have like straight A's, and you have to be the top of your class academically to just be able to get it in the door. And in
Mm-hmm.
undergrad, like I had good grades, I had decent grades, but they weren't, I didn't have a 4.0. So I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to go back to school to retake some classes, excuse me, to get A's in them. And I was
Man.
like, man, I just felt like I was swimming upstream at that point, you
Yeah.
know? And throughout that process, I learned so much, especially coaching. Like that's where I really first started coaching. And I they threw me in they threw me into coach Sac City baseball my first year of coaching, and Sac City baseball taught me a lot. This is like a legitimate like junior college baseball team. It was
Yeah.
2018, 2019, and there's some guys that play in the MLB from that team. So like some really like top level talent, and this is my first year of coaching. Like so coaching like 80 JUCO baseball players, and I'm like 23. You know, oh my god, man, they taught me so much. They taught
Yeah.
me so much. It was a hell of a learning experience. Really like that was where I learned like how important like culture is, you know, in
Totally.
a team, how important like within a room, like just how setting standards for the team and like create like setting expectations was so important. And
Mm-hmm.
I at that point, like that wasn't even on my radar. I was thinking about the X's and the O's of a program and like just the science behind what they needed to do. But then like getting them to actually do it was like a completely different game, and like that's half the
Right.
battle. Like
Yeah.
with coaching and with like you could have a great program, but if someone's not going to buy into it and believe it, like your program's useless, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so those were some of the trials and the tribulations I experienced with Sac City. It was definitely a learning process, but something that I'm really thankful for, and um, I still think about to this day. So that was 2018, 2019. And along this time too, like my back injury like hadn't gone away. It had like come back, and without I trained with Brian and I gotten my back up to a certain point, feeling strong. But when he was in training with me, like at that point, I like the back pain had started to come back, and I wasn't sure how to fix it again, and I don't think I really understood just how the body worked at that point, and really what I needed to do
Mm.
to fix it, and man, that was like some of the toughest. That was probably one of the toughest times of my life. Just that period of time, 2018, first starting to coach, 2019 before COVID, like dealing with back pain every day and trying to go out and operate as a strength coach, like I felt like an imposter. Like I felt like an
Uh,
absolute imposter. Um, so like this is really the meat and potatoes. Maybe we'll have to do a round two of this as well.
sure.
But yeah, like 2018, 2019, like just waking up with like low back pain, trying to coach people. Like I was like, something is wrong. I don't know how to fix my own situation. How am I supposed to help other people do that? And there were just a lot of questions at that time. So, I did my best, but I was always looking for like what else is out there. And I was researching other systems. I was researching like functional patterns. I was researching like Joel Seedman, the 90-90 guy.
Mm.
And then I was looking at ATG, and that's first when I started seeing Ben Patrick and Keegan Smith posting about ATG. I was like, wow, like those guys are doing something that I am not doing right now, and they both look like freaks. So like they both look extremely strong and athletic. So like
And what does ATG stand for again?
athletic truth group.
Got it.
Athletic truth group, yeah. Um, so I started seeing them post, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna look into this. And this is 2019 at that point, and I was getting pretty burnout from coaching at that point. And I was like, you know what, I wasn't making a lot of money, and I didn't really see a future in doing what I was doing, and I didn't feel great at the same time. So I had this pain in my body, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So I was like, you know what, like this isn't it. Like maybe I'm gonna look into something else. So I started looking into firefighting at that point,
Mm.
because I had some guys, some buddies who were firefighters, and I was like, you know, I could do that. Like I'm working with my hands, I'm outside, and then I get stable work. Like that sounds great, helping people. Um, so I started like doing the process for that and like getting my EMT, doing a fire academy, and along the same time, I'm starting to look into at least like uh, some of the ATG stuff. And I hadn't started practicing like the split squats and seated good mornings and all of the fundamental movements of it yet, but I was at least like looking into it. And I actually purchased a program from Keegan, who
Mm.
I still work with to this day. Keegan's an incredible guy. He's a strength coach from Australia. He trained the Sydney Roosters to their premiership, which is like their Super Bowl, and won it in 2013. He's trained Sonny B. Williams, like this like one of the biggest stars in rugby down there. And he trained them through all these methods of just like really getting into the deep ranges of motion and strength through length. And
Mm.
right? So he was running a coaching business called Real Movement. And I looked into that and I became a member, and I was starting to practice some of the methods that he was doing. My body was starting to get stronger, and I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like I could do this. And in my mind, I was like, I had firefighting, and then I had, the coaching that I was starting to learn. I'm like, okay, this is great. And then just throughout that fire academy, I was doing it through American River College, and I was still working 2 days a week at Uriah Faber's gym. I just started getting really busy at Uriah Faber's gym, and the gym had expanded during COVID. So all of a sudden, like we had twice the space, more people were coming in. So I started getting busy, and I was like, you know what? Like if I could do this full time, like I think I'd be really happy doing it.
Yeah.
And throughout the academy, I just had this feeling in my gut, and I was like, I need to go pursue being a coach. So I ended up just not pursuing firefighting, and I jumped headfirst into coaching in like March 2021. And that's when I first started ATG. And I bought the knees over toes program. I started doing split squats. I started doing seated good mornings. And I thought I was mobile and I thought I had mobility to work with, but I was so tight. And that was the X factor. Like I had been strength training through a part range of motion for so long that I never explored the end ranges to really open
Mm.
up like all of the connective tissue and all the tension that I had from my back injury. There's still so much tension that was built up in my spine from that injury. So when I started practicing the movements of ATG, which would completely open you up, that's where it really released the tension in my body. And then I was able to add strength on it. And like now I'm literally a different person. Like I'm structurally different. Like it physically, I mean, it's obvious. Like,
Wow. And how long did it take you to feel like you started, like you were saying, feeling like a different person structurally? Like, was it a quick process, or did you have to really grind on it?
I mean, I definitely had to be persistent with it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, it was like I had to be patient and persistent with it. I was doing Ben's uh, what is it called? I mean, his knees over toes program is catered towards people with knee injuries, and I was doing that for weeks. And um, it's the same thing. It's catered for people like online starting out. I started in March, and I would say like, I mean, I started seeing progress definitely, but towards the end of 2021, I think is where I really started gaining steam. And then I hired a coach named Ben Clarefield, who runs a really high level facility out of Toronto, Canada. And
Mm.
Ben Clarefield trained under Paula Quinn, who ATG is all based off of Charles Poliquin, right? So I hired Ben Clarefield to teach me about the long-term periodization, like how to change the variables of strength training over time.
Right.
And so the beginning of 2022, I started really implementing those principles. And I would say this last year, like my body has definitely like completely changed. Like I've, so you're looking at, I would say it's taken about a year of like solid, consistent work to like make the structural changes to like actually, you know, fix these injuries that I've had for years.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Got you. So it takes a little bit of time, but with some persistence and some patience, you can really get to, a new transformed body.
Exactly. It takes time, but in the long run, like it's not that much time. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I had the back injury in 2017, so like I had 3 years of just sciatica and tension built up. I had a shoulder injury in 2015. Like, I mean, 7 years of that, and within a year, like I've really been able to get these things back up to speed, and like get these areas of my body that were once such had so much pain in them. Now they're feeling good again, feeling strong.
Right.
So yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much time.
Right on. Well,
Yeah,
man, like I look forward to, kind of like, seeing your progress and what that means in the next, coming year, right? As we get close to
yeah,
the end of the year and stuff. And, it's also really, really amazing that you're able to share that with the community and help people grow and stuff like that too. Because, that's something I've always been interested in is the ATG system. I haven't really dipped my toe into it too much. I do some of the stuff that they do, but we already do that for track anyways. But
yeah.
I'm curious to see how that can, how I can implement more and stuff. And so maybe I'll check in with you about that in the future. But I know that you have to
Yeah,
hop pretty soon.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
are there any closing thoughts that you have that you want to share for this part one?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna have to do part two. Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, we didn't even get really into mindset, but yeah, I mean, we could finish with ATG. Like,
Hmm.
it's just yeah, ATG is like the principles that ATG promotes are life changing. It's like, you got to be you have to be patient with it at first to like gain the range of motion. But then once you gain the full range of motion, you can squat ass to grass, and you can do like an RDL, like to your mid shin. You can fully lengthen out like your tissue. Um, like those are just some examples, but once you can do
Hmm.
that, then like you get that tissue to its full length, and that's where it's the healthiest. It receives the most blood flow, and that's where like the magic really starts to happen. And most people don't spend the time to be patient and work on lengthening out all of their different muscles, and then they're only strong in part range, and they're tight and they're limited, and that's where you get pain and limitation. So yeah, we'll definitely have to get you set up with some ATG. I'm gonna have to come out there and we're gonna have to hop in the weight room and get some
Oh,
sessions in, bro.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We'll get some Couro video sessions of that for sure.
Yeah,
And maybe some like, on the mat work as well. I think I told you I did Shaolin Kempo when I was younger, but I never have done any grappling, but I'm definitely down to try.
dude.
But
Yeah,
right on, man. I
yeah.
really appreciate you hopping on the pod, and the people know this, hopefully by now, but they can check you out on Couro, but they can also check you out on Instagram, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Move with Nick.
Move with Nick is your Instagram. People go follow him, check him out. He's got great content, and if you want more personalized, exclusive content, you can find him on Couro. Go to Couro.fit. Go ahead and subscribe to him. Go ahead and check all of his stuff out. He will get you right, get you those full range of motions. Make sure that all of your stuff is healed, right? You get the full blood flow, all that stuff. And we didn't even get to the mindset portion. That'll be the next pod. He'll get
Hey.
your mind right too, which is more than half the battle, I'd say.
Yes. Yes. Yes,
Mhm.
Cam. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have online strength training programs I'm now offering for grapplers or anyone who, wants to get into grappling or really, I mean, you don't even need to grapple. If you want to get stronger, you want to, build muscle and build resiliency and, help your joints get better, then, I have different programs I'm offering for people. So yeah, you guys can check those out through Instagram and just message me. But yes, Cam, thank you so much, brother, for having me on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right. All right, everybody. We appreciate you listening this far, and we'll check you next time.